And we are live. This is awesome. Everybody, I am excited for this one because for those of you who do not know Rachel Wesenberg, or have never met Rachel Wesenberg, or you know Rachel and you don't keep in touch with her, you are all missing out on life. because Rachel is the greatest person. She's funny, and I can say that my life quality improved significantly once I met her.
Oh, Lord, right in the beginning.
So everybody knows Rachel is funny as hell and great. And this is just in case no one's told you, now you know. So
cheers to that.
Cheers. What are you doing? What are you drinking?
This is some kind of cold coffee, but I really like this mug. I'm really proud of it. So
Mona Lisa.
I will continue drinking it.
Now that looks very artsy. Did you make that, or was it bought somewhere?
Honored once again. No, I did not make this mug. Actually, where I work, there's a cute little thrift shop. And so I went shopping for mugs. Anyone that knows me knows I really like a good mug. It just, when you wake up in the morning and whether it's tea, coffee, brandy, I don't care. You want something cute to put it in. So it just like feels better, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't have a Mona Lisa mug, but I agree with you completely.
Well, it was a 2-pack and I just wanted one. So maybe if you travel, you could find it, but I highly doubt it.
I'll just visit you and just probably take it. So we're not.
I'll serve you one cup of coffee in it if you're lucky, but
sounds good. Now, how has your coffee been for you since you came back from Peru? Fun fact, everybody, Rachel is a returned Peace Corps volunteer, the first returned Peace Corps volunteer on our podcast, and coffee is a thing down there. So how has your coffee trend been since you came back?
You know what? It's gotten a lot better because where I was at in Peru, their coffee was not a thing because I was in the Sierra, so it was super high. I did live fairly close to the jungle. So that's where most of the coffee was grown. And I got to do like a little tour of, I don't think it's a plantation, like a coffee farm. And so that was like super, super good coffee. And I actually found at a coffee shop here in Wisconsin, I'm going to forget the name of the brand. It's something with an A, but they sell coffee from Junin, like where I was at. And it's the best coffee I've ever had. So good. But, when I was actually in Peace Corps, I splurged and got like a coffee maker. But I just made terrible coffee, and I really like creamer too. So I didn't have good creamer there, but the time I went to the coffee plantation, so good. But now that I'm back in the US, my coffee game is like, it's stepped up. It's good.
Okay. I think
long answer.
No, it's great. It's great. I think since I've come back, I've only had coffee that I've made, not Dunkin' Donuts coffee, like twice.
Really?
Yeah, I've just
get yourself a coffee maker. It's like I don't need the caffeine in the morning. I need the caffeine at like 2 p.m. or something. But I just need like the smell, the mug, the vibe, just like right when I wake up. It gets me out of bed, just like striving for that cup of coffee.
For sure. I also like when I wake up, I live right next to my job now. So I'll wake up at the latest possible time I can and then just jet out, do the hair super quickly, throw water in my face. And then everybody's like, oh, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. I totally didn't wake up 10 minutes ago. I totally don't. So I just think it's me. It's just who I am. I never make coffee in the morning, but I'm happy that you do, which is all that matters.
Me too.
Happy that you do. So thank you for joining us today on the podcast. I'm so happy when I reached out to you that you were willing to be on the show. And again, Rachel is our first RPCV. And for those who aren't familiar with those acronyms, that is a returned Peace Corps volunteer. Where Rachel and I met was in the Peace Corps. So
before the Peace
Corps, which is actually what I was about to bring up. Rachel, fun fact, was the very first person I met in the Peace Corps, and not like actually in Peru. We all gathered, how many of us was there? 60-ish?
60, yeah.
60-ish. There was about 60 of us that went to Philadelphia. And fun facts, because I lived in Reading at the time, my mom and sister were like, oh, we'll just drive you there. Me not thinking of the repercussions of how hard that goodbye was going to be at the actual hotel when everybody else flew in from like the different states. Rachel flew in from Wisconsin. So I was just getting over the traumatization of saying goodbye to my family. And I go into the elevator and then...
Not exaggerating. I rewind. So I'm the day before I'm leaving for Peace Corps, and the Chicago O'Hare Airport flooded. So now all of a sudden I'm like calling Peace Corps. I'm like, I need to get a flight to staging tomorrow because I'm leaving the country for 2 years and I'm emotional. So please get me a flight. So that was the day before. Me and my parents we were like having my last supper. And then we had to drive to Chicago, which is like 3.5 hours from my house, stay overnight, so I could get on a different flight instead of leaving in the morning to go to staging. And then I get to Philadelphia. I'm hotter than hell. It was so hot that day. So hot. When was that? September, beginning of September. It was so hot.
Yep.
And like I physically couldn't carry all my luggage. What I even packed, I couldn't even tell you. It was nothing important because I don't think I brought any of that back with me. I'm like dragging my stuff. One wheel was broken on my luggage. I'm dragging my shit. I like finally get to the hotel. I'm like, I just want to get to my room. Our meeting starts in like 15 minutes. I'm sweating in my business casual. They want to make, we're in the Peace Corps. You don't need business casual. And then I met Jaime. And so I'm all concerned. I'm flustered that I look like a mess. I'm like, but you can, like, when you get there, you can kind of tell who's who, you know, like usually young people, emotionally traumatized from just saying goodbye to their families, completely lost. So I was like, okay, he looks like Peace Corps. So I get my shit in the elevator. He helps me. Thank you, Jaime, for grabbing all the stuff. And then we ride up. So that was my side of the story. I was embarrassed. And Jaime, meanwhile, is like, crying.
Oh my God, it was awful. So literally right before you got onto the elevator, it was probably seconds before where I said my last goodbye to my mom and my sister. So I'm an emotional train wreck. I'm all over the place, but I'm trying not to show it. I'm trying to be like that man that isn't acting like a man at that moment, but is really being a man because I'm showing my emotions, but I couldn't hold it in. So then I was just embarrassed. Because you came in and I'm like, oh man, this is my first impression. She's gonna think I'm a loser. So tears coming down my face. So much so to the point that I didn't even realize how much you were struggling. All I saw was that one of your bags flopped. I couldn't even see because my tear ducts were just filled. So then I get myself together and I'm like, wow. I probably look so awful in front of this girl.
Yeah, then we rode out in silence and both were embarrassed. And then we met each other later and we went to the same region and we became the best of friends. But our meeting was just funny because we talked about it later. And that's when I learned the truth about your emotional vulnerability, which is great.
It's a thing, everybody. It's a thing. Fun fact. Rachel and I are gonna expose our weaknesses here. So you're gonna learn about us today. But yes, so Peace Corps was an experience. It was an experience. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, actually. I'm going to backtrack and going to go back towards the college days a little bit and talk about your time in the Philippines specifically. So that was, correct me if I'm wrong, your study abroad experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a common trend with everybody here, with most of the people that are being brought on, are people that have either studied abroad or they come from a traveling family or they did something like Peace Corps or Fulbright or things to that degree. And I always like to know the origins of that. What made them want to go to the places that they went to in college, and then what branched them off to travel even more. So let's start off with your origins of travel specifically. Why the Philippines? Did you have any other options? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I do not come from a traveling family, I guess. I don't know if that was a term. But I had never been out of the country. And like we had traveled a lot within the United States. So that's probably where that came from. Just I like, seeing new places and doing things, hiking, all that kind of stuff. So I was, going through all the study abroad options, and I picked out this program in El Salvador, actually. It was called Casa de la Solidaridad, so House of Solidarity. And so it was a program focused on language immersion. So I really wanted to learn Spanish. I was minoring in Spanish at the time, and just like getting to know the community around you, and more like a service oriented and like culture oriented study abroad rather than like, I'm not diminishing people who went to Europe or anything, but that sounds lit. This was not lit. It was like fun and different. And so it was really centered around that. Man, now that I'm saying this, I have really bad luck with flights because a couple days before I was supposed to leave, like 3 days, I'm like packed, I'm ready to go. El Salvador, I'm so excited. The Peace Corps pulled out of El Salvador because of all the unrest and violence that was going on and is still going on. And so that got canceled and I was freaking out. But they had a sister program in the Philippines. So that's how I ended up in the Philippines. So not my first choice, not a culture I'd ever thought about, been exposed to or anything like that. But, and I think that was an interesting way to frame my experience because it was my first time ever traveling out of the country. I literally remember saying goodbye to my parents at the airport and I got on the plane. And this poor man who was sitting next to me, like a grown, like middle-aged man. And I'm just like heaving, like sobbing in my seat, just like trying to be like really quiet and like chill about it, but like sobbing, just watching the United States just like go away from me because it was the first time I had really traveled. So, but it got better than that. It went uphill from there.
I could say just the flight itself as you were leaving, but as you descended upon, it improved. Okay.
The tears turned into a smile. It was good.
So how was it when you got there? What was did you hear different language? Because I don't know much about the Philippines. Mm-hmm. How was it? Like, what was that vibe when you got there? Talk about some like cultural things you experienced when you first got there. Did you live with the host family? Mm-hmm. First few weeks there, per se.
Yeah. So like I said, I had never been out of the country. So literally just like driving from the airport to our house, I was like blown away. It was like the middle of the night, it's like 1 a.m. and I'm like hyped. Like I was like so like shook from the travel and everything. So happy that I had found like where I was going to because someone from my program picked me up from the airport. So in Manila, a lot of people speak English, especially like when you're at an airport. And then the way our program was structured was we, American students and Filipino students, so we got to like live in a intercultural setting. We lived in a little kind of like, I would say middle-class neighborhood at the base of a university. So Philippines, really hot. And we had like, we would go to classes 3 days a week and we had to climb like the biggest set of stairs you have ever seen. And it's the Philippines. So like I'm not a sweaty person. Okay. But oh my God. Like it was like a 99% humidity because this was the summer. This is not the rainy season. And like you just climb those stairs and like hike to class. It was crazy. But good detox every day to start your day. Nothing better. And so we lived right by university. So 3 days a week we would go to classes. And it was a really small group. I would say there were like 13 of us. And we lived in 2 different houses in this neighborhood. And we would go to classes. Forget what the classes were, sorry. But then the other 2 days of the week, we were all assigned, it was called a praxis site. And so we would just like go, it wasn't really volunteering or service. It was kind of just like hanging out with people. So I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with L'Arche, but that was one of the sites where people will go just to live in community with people with disabilities and just like hang out and learn and have fun. My site was called San Damian Center. So I went with 2 other people, one American student, and then one who did speak Tagalog, which is the national language. So when you go more outside of the city center, like no one really speaks English. So that was challenging because I didn't speak any Tagalog except for salamat po, which is thank you. So it was rough in that sense because like it's hard to really immerse and get to know people when you can't speak the language and they can't speak your language. But it was really fun. What do we even do there? Oh gosh, yeah. So we would do like a meal program. Did you have vaso de leche and Peace Corps at your site?
Yeah, I had vaso de leche.
Okay, so they had that there too, that program. And I like just made that connection a little while ago. So they would serve like super nutritional milk to the kids at schools and stuff. And there was a special needs program there. So we learned a little bit of sign language and would just like do classes with the kids. And yeah, so it was a really good experience. It was really tough in a lot of ways because it was my first time out of the country. It was not the trip that I had planned. I was not learning the language I wanted to learn. But it got me out of my comfort zone all day, every day. And it was a really good experience.
And with 3 days notice, you said, correct?
Yeah. It was wild. It was really sad. It was on my birthday. I was like walking out the door to go hang out with my friends. I was like so excited. Ooh, I'm turning 20. And I got an email. It was like, your study abroad has been canceled. And I was just like so upset. I was so sad. And the rest of that night it was a rough night, but I made it through. I made it through the other side.
Push through. Rachel pushes through. She's a warrior. She's a comedian too, everybody, if you don't pick up on that. Fun fact. So
if you say that, then they're not going to think I'm funny.
You are very funny, in my opinion. It's a good, well, I know you. So I feel like, again, if you guys don't know Rachel, you're missing out on life. That's all I'll say. So
well, now they do.
No, now they do. So you can come back, you're doing your studies. And then where did the interest for this 2-year crazy adventure, the Peace Corps, come about? What made you want to do that? And where did that come from, basically?
I don't even know. A lot of people I think are like, oh, my aunt did Peace Corps, or I've always wanted to do Peace Corps, or, like someone in their life like really inspired them to do Peace Corps. And that was, I didn't know anyone who had done it. It wasn't really on my radar at all through high school, all through college. Towards the end of college, I knew I wanted to do some sort of gap year, some sort of service year, but I was really looking at just 1-year programs. And I knew that the Peace Corps was longer than that. So I was like, not really interested. I just wasn't like ready to go straight into a career yet, or I was considering grad school. I wasn't ready to go straight into grad school. I thought I needed some more experience. But then I went to a recruitment service fair at SLU, and just like a really cool, like down-to-earth recruiter. He was like talking about his experiences. And then in combination with that, I had spoken with a pastor at one of my churches. Hey, Evie, if you're listening to this. And she had lived in Mozambique for, I think, 11 months. I forget the avenues that she got there through, but she said, like, really a year, like I got to a year, and like throughout that year, you're like struggling. You want to go home. You have really hard moments, and you're like, I just have to make it to a year. Then you get to a year in a different country, in a different culture living, and you finally like catch your stride. You finally like can speak the language, know where you're going, feel comfortable. And then, so she's like, I really regret not staying longer than a year, at least a year and a half. And so that kind of encouraged me to consider like 2-year programs and think about not just like, oh, I'm going to miss my family and everything like that, but think more about like how cool it would be to just spend a really extended amount of time in another country and really like feel like home there. So then I started considering Peace Corps, and I actually applied to Guatemala first. I really wanted to go to Guatemala because like Central America, I still hadn't gone to El Salvador, and I was like, I need to go back. I need to get there. And that didn't work out. So then I got accepted to Peru. So it really, I don't really know how I got there. It was, I applied in like December or something. I think the application closed in January. I got an interview in like March, I want to say. And then like a week later, I heard back from them that I was accepted. And our staging was in September. So almost a little less than a year long process.
Long process.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like 10 years. That was a long process. So when you got that acceptance, what was that feeling like?
I can't believe I'm saying this again. I cried. I don't cry that much. I remember this moment really vividly. I was in my college apartment with my roommate, Molly, and I got the email, and I was like so shook. Like I was so shocked, and I was like, oh my God, like I got accepted to Peace Corps. I didn't even know what to do because I didn't think my interview went terribly well. Like I had a cold, so I was like blowing my nose all the time, and like my webcam wasn't working, so it was dark. I was like, can't even see like how psyched I am about this. So I thought it went really bad, and I was like really shocked to get the acceptance. And another thing with Peace Corps, I don't know if they still are going to do this when they open up again, but they give you like 48 to 72 hours or something crazy like that to accept. And that was really hard because I think I'm someone who like if I commit to something, I'm gonna do it. Like I'm not. It's really hard for me to quit out on something. Just just I don't know the principle of it. So for me, I think for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'll accept and then like have that in my back pocket and like figure out what my other options are. But for me, it was like, okay, if I accept this invitation, like I'm doing it. Like I'm going. That's crazy. And so I hadn't really like fully thought about it yet. And so that was, yeah, it was crazy. It was like, it was a big moment. And I I thought they were going to rescind my application because I asked for an extension because one of my friends said he got an extension and he had to like, discuss it with family and they gave it to him. And my person was like, let me remind you of the 10 core values of Peace Corps. Like, if you're not ready for this shit, basically, move on, sister. So I was like, okay, I'll go.
I guess it just depends on like the recruiter and like the country. Maybe it depends on the post. Maybe some posts like they're like, oh, we need people, so yeah, we'll give you that extension. Whereas other posts are like, nope.
I know. Yeah, I've heard like over and over again from maybe it's only people in Peru who got accepted to Peru, but they all say that Peru's like the hardest program to get into, which is interesting. But I don't know if I've heard that from an official source.
My recruiter slightly mentioned that. I remember when I was looking into it, she said, "Oh, you're going to one of the ones where they have like hundreds of applications." I was like, and she said normally it's the bigger names, like the ones where like, oh, Fiji, oh, Peru, oh, Europe. That sounds fun. So they felt there's like a bunch of applications more so. So then of course it has to be more competitive. But
yeah,
it is what it is, and we were there, so they can't take that away from us. They can't take that away. So you were there, and your Spanish, by the way, off the charts. Like from the moment you were there. And how is that? So let's talk about pre-service a little bit. You get there, you were accepted, we're flown from Philadelphia to Lima, and we're all broken up in our separate groups. You had your health program, I had my youth program, and then we were also broken up in languages. So how did you feel with that adjustment of your knowledge of Spanish, being put in an advanced group? And how was pre-service training for you specifically?
I was terrified. Literally, they posted the language groups. So you get split up, via your level. And I don't think we had gotten the results from our language tests. Had we? I don't think we had.
We got it, I think, like a few weeks, like 3 weeks into the program.
Okay, right. Yeah. So we didn't know.
Yeah.
You have to take a language test beforehand for countries like Spanish, or whatever. Like if you slightly know the language. So we took a language test. Thought I went horrible. I just remember laying on my kitchen floor afterwards and being like, that didn't go well. But I guess it did. And I remember seeing the language list and I was with like reading the names. I was like Vasquez, Gonzalez, Wesenberg, and like all these Spanish names. I was like, a mistake has been made. I do not know what I'm doing. And I still feel that way. I think I tested in too high. Like, I don't think I was at that level because you do a language test when you get there. So before you get there during your interview process, and then a couple months into pre-service training, which is 3 months long. And then again, before you leave, and then again at like 3 months, and then at 12 months. And you're supposed to like progress. They said I came in at advanced mid, which is high. But I stayed at advanced mid the whole time because I was like, I don't know who interviewed me, but they went easy on me. Anyways, and so I was in the highest language group. And so that was really intimidating, but it was good practice. It was to just be surrounded. I think you always like elevate, like, I don't know, in high school, whatever, you do like an advanced class and you're like with all the smart people. So you like, you give it your A game. And I think that helped me like get over the fear of like making mistakes and stuff because they didn't care, and I was going to be living with native speakers of Spanish. So that was good to just, get over that. Because I think for people learning a language, I think that's the biggest barrier is like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to say something wrong. I don't want to say like the wrong word and have like a bad meaning come out or something like that. But once you get over that, it's like, it's smooth sailing. Once you get over it, like, I don't care what I sound like. I just want to learn. It like opens up the floodgates for you to learn. I didn't ever get over that hump with Quechua. Because I was in the advanced group. So they were like, oh, you already know Spanish. You can learn Quechua. And I have never panicked so hard in my life. The first day they did, and oh my gosh, every other like site in Peace Corps is probably like this. And I'm complaining about Quechua, but most people go to a place where they have no basis of the language, like tribal languages, stuff like that. So that was very much Quechua of Peace Corps Peru. And the first class, our Quechua teacher just was teaching in Quechua, the immersive like learning, which I guess there's evidence behind it, but not in my noggin. That did not work for me. I was going to speak Spanish and learn Spanish. I don't know Quechua, not about it. It was hard, but it was funny because with all the native Spanish speakers, they were like, ooh, like I speak Spanish. This is so easy. And then they were all like struggling with Quechua. And I was like, oh, all right, well, at least we're all on the same playing field.
Maybe that was Peace Corps' way of thinking, oh, if they're already native, we need to make them uncomfortable in some possible way.
Maybe,
so,
yeah.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody who went to Ancash, you're phenomenal people. I feel like the people who went weren't the ones that were weren't the ones that were learning Quechua.
No. I can think of a couple people that were in the Quechua class, but they switched it. So before just the advanced people learn Quechua and then you get your site assignments. But now they choose people who are going to Ancash where they speak Quechua, and then they start their Quechua classes earlier on, which I think makes so much more sense because I never used Quechua ever, not once in my site. No one spoke it, which was interesting because I was in a really rural site, but no one there spoke Quechua. Mm-hmm. And then people in Ancash had a lot more exposure to it and really needed it, but they didn't have as long to learn Quechua.
Well, what better way to learn than be thrown into the fire? So
it's tough, but it's good for you.
But your Spanish was great. I thought it was always great from the beginning. And of course, there's that sense of like, oh, like, I don't know how good my Spanish is. I felt that way. And then in the group that I was in, I was like, oh, all these people like know Spanish so much better than me. I get to know them and they're like, oh, my Spanish is crap. It's like, what are you talking about? So I feel like Peace Corps kind of stripped you down a little bit and made you sit back and think like, how good can my Spanish be? How good is it actually? How good is it really in reality? Other people are saying it's good. Are they just being nice? What is it like? But by the time I left pre-service training, of course, I felt, at least in my mind, I was like, I'm not ready yet, but I'm ready enough. And then I got there, and after 4 or 6 more months, I was like, okay, now I'm really ready. Now I can speak it like it's nothing.
Yeah. It's so cool. Like everyone comes in at different language levels and it's very evident because you're literally in different language groups. And so you spend a lot of time doing different things with your language groups. But, and then you leave and you with Peace Corps Peru, I mean, it's a huge country. So we were lucky. We were really close to each other. We could see each other within an hour and a half, 2 hours or something like that. But other people, I mean, like there were people who, when we left pre-service training, I didn't see them till our next training event because, I mean, people in Amazonas or Cajamarca, like to get there, it's like a plane ride or a 7-hour bus to Lima and then a 25-hour bus up north. And it's crazy. So to see people at the different like points in time, people who I didn't regularly speak to or catch up with, because then by the end, by mid-service training, you're 12 months into Peace Corps. Everyone basically is at the same level. We can all have conversations in Spanish, and it's cool just to just feel comfortable in that and like see the growth of not only yourself, but everybody else throughout the experience, because you really grow and change in a lot of different ways.
For sure. It's life-changing. It changed my life and set me up with the success that I now have. And I get to use Spanish. I don't know how it is with your job, but I get to use it here where I'm working.
That's really awesome. Neat. I wish.
Which is neat. So, but at least you have that. You have that in your back pocket. And with that transition, this kind of somewhat goes into the culture shock. How do you maintain the level? Do you listen to music? How are you maintaining your Spanish per se? Or is it not just, is it?
Slowly dying.
Slowly dying?
No, it's so dumb. It's kind of like working out. It's like, oh man, want to get that beach bod, want to maintain that beach bod, but like I love pizza and ice cream. So it's like I want to I don't know how I'm going to make this connection, but I want to maintain my level of Spanish and stay comfortable with the language. But like when I read a book, I don't want to be working at it. And to read in Spanish, my vocabulary would improve. My verb tenses would, I would get more fluent with that, more comfortable with that, which is something I really want, to have more expansive vocabulary. But I don't bring myself to do it. So I haven't read any books in Spanish. Sometimes I'll watch TV in Spanish, but nothing will be better than Narcos. And that's done for now. So maybe I need to rewatch that. But I do listen to a lot of Spanish music. And so sometimes I'll try and look up the lyrics. But again, that's a lot of like dirty like slang that I don't think I will use in my everyday life. Hopefully not. But yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm fluent, like I can carry on a conversation. I can understand most, Spanish accents fairly easily. But I remember one time with my host family in Peru, I was trying to explain like a near accident that I had with my car. And it was like, I can talk about condoms, how to put a condom on, how to prevent STDs in front of a class of students in Spanish. But to talk about the parts of a car and the directions and the things that were happening in this one seemingly really simple situation was like so hard. And so all of a sudden I was like, shoot, am I fluent or not? So really I think once you get to a certain point, it's just from there, you just need more vocabulary. So I think that's what I need to focus on. Thanks for reminding me, Jaime.
Contact. Well, just trying to spread the love and trying to make sure that Spanish never dies. An important point for everybody. So our jobs differed within the Peace Corps. So Rachel was a health. What was the exact? It was a health
community health volunteer.
Community health volunteer. Yep, community health volunteer, and I was a youth development volunteer. So a lot of our work was different. And the reason why Rachel just mentioned helping people put on a condom and things like that is because her job was to help people with make sure HIVs, things like that, to be very, very healthy as you can in every single aspect: mental health, physical health, emotional health. That's where the plug comes from. So let's actually talk about that a little bit. How was kind of to an extent in the Peace Corps, we're our own bosses. Like we have bosses, of course, we have multiple bosses, but at the end of the day, the work comes down to the Peace Corps volunteer. It comes down to you as whatever you're going to end up doing. How was your work in the site that you lived in? And tell us about your time as a health community volunteer, where you were at.
Yeah, so within Peace Corps, it's like, it is what you make it, right? You don't have your own boss. I could have sat on my bum, like ate food all day long and like traveled whenever I wanted to. You can do whatever you want, or you can really lean into it, put a lot of time and effort into it and get a lot out of it. So I went to a site called Chiche, and it was super, super small, probably like 800 people. So Peace Corps Peru specifically is such a large country. And again, it's a middle income country. So there's really very, very poor places. And then there's very developed places like Lima, Cusco, the touristy places. So my area was much in the Sierra, so pretty poor, but still accessible, more accessible than a lot of places maybe in the jungle. I totally just lost my train of thought. Oh, my program. Why did I start talking about Chiche though?
You were talking about some areas that are more developed and some areas.
But you asked me about my program.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
What you were doing, what was your community like? The ins and outs of your work.
This is where my brain goes. It's like it doesn't stay in a path. Anyway, so I was a health volunteer in the Sierra in Chiche, a small town of Mexico. For our health program, we had two main goals. One was working with adolescents and working on life skills in order to support them in like their sexual health development. Because, you can't jump straight to like, here's how to put a condom on. You need to be like, okay, how do you love yourself? Do you have self-esteem? How do you pick a partner? What kind of is a healthy relationship versus unhealthy? Just so many things to build up to, okay, now how do you lead like an empowered life in order to inform yourself on decisions before, having a baby? How much does a baby cost? Like all those things. So that was really interesting. And for my site being so rural, it was actually very I was able to do a lot of stuff regarding sexual health. So that was really interesting. Like I said, we did a condom race. A lot of places were not able to do that just because it is pretty, for a conservative place, it is pretty difficult to talk about those kinds of things, especially with parents or teachers who might have a different mindset. You know, we talked about gender and sexuality and trying to break down some of those barriers and stigmas that people have. Yeah, so that was a really interesting experience. I will say I don't think I really like teenagers, so that wasn't my favorite part of the Peace Corps experience. But I did enjoy that, and teaching in the schools and teaching classes was really fun. Working with parents, blowing their minds about like just, you know, stuff that seems like so normal to us. And then the second half of the job that I really, really enjoyed was maternal and child health. So focusing on the health of kids 0 to 3 and then pregnant women. And I really enjoyed that because, you know, teaching in front of class is fun, but I feel like I didn't really get as much one-on-one time. I didn't get to know a lot of my students, but with the child health goals, it was a lot of house visits. It was a lot of one-on-one, you know. Oh my God. I think someone just rang my doorbell.
Is it a pet? Oh yeah, if you have to go answer the door.
I've just like never heard it before. We're back.
Was it an Amazon package?
No, I don't have Amazon Prime actually. It was ThreadUp. Everyone should shop on ThreadUp. It's great. Resale, reduce, reuse, recycle. Ooh, okay. Wow, that was crazy. My doorbell thing, it usually doesn't work, but it scares the crap out of me when it does.
That's a terrifying doorbell. That was like
it's so loud. The first time it went off, I thought it was like the fire alarm or something, but it was just my doorbell. Okay. What were we saying?
You're good. You were talking about your site and
Yeah. So house visits was like a lot of one-on-one time. So I felt like the moms that I visited, I had a better relationship with them than some of my students because it was one-on-one. And I, with that too, my site was like super hilly, like very beautiful. And so I really enjoyed, even if it was like raining or something, it was just nice to like walk around, the communities and, you know, like I lived in the plaza. So like the central location. So a lot of the meetings were there. My church that my host family and I went to was near there. So some of the community members I would see at those meetings and stuff, of the community because I lived in the plaza, but seeing them in their home environments and at home and with their animals out on the chacra or the farm was a whole different thing. So it'd be fun to be like, oh, hey, I know you. And people really enjoyed seeing the gringa just like wandering around, getting bit by dogs and just lost as hell. So that was good.
My favorite segment, like when we had what was it? I'm forgetting things about Peace Corps now. It was when we found out our site exploration. That's what it was. So when we found out our sites, and then you actually go to the sites for 2 weeks during pre-service training. So when you and I were in Hunin, I'll never forget when everybody was going like Google Gaga over like your blue eyes. How clear. So to be more specific with that, everybody, I guess blue eyes are a thing for many people in Peru. So when Rachel came along, and like Rachel has like super clear blue eyes. Like if you ever see her in person, they're like clear, like daggers into your face. So I remember my host family was like, wow, esa gringa con sus ojos
azules. Because when we go, before we actually go to our sites, we have a meeting with our host families, with the people we're going to be working with. They call them socios. Yeah. And so like meeting everybody was interesting.
and it wasn't just it became like the talk of the entire site expo, like, oh, la gringa con los ojos azules, which is basically the girl with the blue eyes.
Yeah, so that white chick with blue eyes.
You stood out, but in a great way because you're different. We all are. but
and I like that was one of the things, like when you first get there, like, oh my God, they think my eyes are burning. But it gets really old really fast. And that was something like in the Philippines too, that just like really, it stressed me out because I feel like people are just constantly like staring at you like, I'm just like, I've got diarrhea. I just want to get from point A to point B. Like, just leave me alone. Like, stop looking at me. I wish, like, sometimes I really wanted like contacts. Like, I wanted to dye my hair just so I could like slightly blend in, just because it would get so annoying. But that's like, I mean, it's such a privileged thing to say, because that was like, it was always in a manner of like positive attention, where it was like a lot of volunteers of color or of Asian descent, they get called like chinito, and then they have to go in and explain, like, I'm not Chinese, I'm American, or I'm Korean American, I'm Japanese American, or like Black people, no, I'm not African, I'm American or African American. Like, yes, I'm just, I also went to college, I'm just as able as the rest of these volunteers. And so I always thought about that when I would like complain about like getting all this attention, and it was so annoying, but it was always in a positive light, as opposed to some people who struggled like in a way different way than me. So
yeah, at the time it's hard. At the time, we're in this new world, and even if you've been there for a year, and the looks, like the talks, the quiet whispers about you, it's kind of like, but then you always have to take a step back, and what they taught us in training, like, think of it from like a different lens, think of like the privilege aspect, think of like what they're thinking and how they're not used to somebody like you, they're not used to somebody like, they're not used to anybody like us. And still, at the end of the day, even if we understood that, it was hard to think about it or accept it. But that was what the Peace Corps was. You were being thrown into this new world where people, you don't speak the language and you're learning it, and people don't know who you are and you don't know who they are. And then even when I came back, it was hard. I don't know for you, it was hard for me to explain what I did, what I actually did, what I went through. And it's not like the typical study abroad spiel of like, oh, I went here, here, and here, and here, and here. I took these classes and it was great and I experienced this culture. Peace Corps is like a whole nother, it's undescribable. How do you explain it?
Yeah, and it is hard to explain to people. It's like on both sides of it. I mean, our host families and host communities will never know, what we came from, what the experience was like for us. Like, I think this is one of those moments where I definitely needed to like step back, think about it from someone else's perspective. But I would get like frustrated with my host family or whatever. And I'm like, they don't even know what I'm going through. Like, I don't know anybody here. It is so exhausting to be thinking and speaking in Spanish all day long. It is so hard to be trying to like get work done and no one wants to work with me. Like, I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. Like, why would they say that to me? Or why would they treat me like that? Or whatever it might be. And so it is important just to take a step back and be like, they think I'm some like alien, that's why they're treating me that way. Or they don't mean it out of, like in a menacing way. And the same thing with Americans. Like, when people are like, oh, God bless you, I could never do that, you're such a saint, oh, are you okay, how are you, you look so miserable all the time. Like, making your experience something that they're able to comprehend, rather than like really asking you like detailed questions. Some people are really good about asking the right questions, and some people are like, so how was it? It's like, what do you mean? I don't even know where to begin. It's like, how do you even communicate that to someone? And so I think with a lot of travel experiences, like my friends from Casa in the Philippines, like, we only will truly know what that was like. And we have like this lifelong connection because of that, which is so cool. And then like my Peace Corps friends, like, we knew what it was like. And it's just, yeah. So we'll always have the connection. And then it is like an ongoing struggle, I think, to be able to express what you experienced and communicate it in a way that makes sense to people and like honors the experience too. So that's an ongoing struggle, I think, with travel and meeting new people and encountering different cultures. It's like, it's a really intense experience, and it's just hard to express it the right way.
Absolutely. And especially like if you were there for an extended period of time. Extended, like not just like a few months or a few weeks or like a few days, like you were there for over a year and a half. So and then you're readjusting back to life in the States, you're readjusting to this new world. So only we will know what that's like. But it is what it is. So it is what it is. But now you're back, and let's talk a little bit about what you're doing. How are you keeping yourself busy? How has your adjustment been with the new role that you have? Rachel has a super big, cool job putting that health degree into use and saving lives. So how have you been keeping yourself? If you're not, then okay. How are you keeping yourself busy nowadays? What are you doing now that you're back?
Yeah, so now I live near Milwaukee. For those of you probably on the East and West Coast, we don't know where that is. It's in Wisconsin. I get really defensive about people who don't like the Midwest. It's great. So I live right outside Milwaukee, which is a cool city. I work at a health department. I'm not going to tell you which one because there's crazy people. So I work at a health department near that place, and my job title is a public health strategist, which is way cooler than it sounds. It's essentially a public health educator. But I moved here in October. I was living with my parents since I was evacuated in March from the Peace Corps. And so unfortunately, I don't really know what the context of my normal job will be, what I got hired to do, because it's been COVID 24/7. So that was getting pretty old, just collecting a lot of data, doing some contact tracing, social media, stuff like that. And now we're transitioning into vaccine distribution. So that's kind of hiked up the energy and the, we need to change, plans all the time. And it's reminding me a little bit of the Peace Corps, where you just have to adjust and change and swerve and do a new plan and stuff. And that's been able to keep me on my toes a little bit more. And it's so interesting to just be on. I mean, this pandemic is happening for everybody all over the world, right? But it's I'm on the planning side and the logistical side, and it's a nightmare. I hear the news and people are talking about the vaccine, it's taking forever, blah, blah, blah. And being on the logistical side of it is oh my God, this is a nightmare. It's crazy. But as a public health nerd, I think it's so interesting and cool, not to diminish the fact that this is a pandemic and people are dying and it's horrible and awful and needs to be done as soon as possible. But it's interesting to strategize. We're losing. COVID is winning. Their strategy is better than ours.
You heard it first on the Travel Chronicles, everybody, from an actual public health strategist who is qualified and more than knowledgeable in what she's doing. We're losing. But it takes a village. It really does. It takes a village, and we're a big country of a village. So my hope is that vaccine distribution starts coming out sooner, and it can only get better. Well, I don't know about that.
I know, everyone's
I don't know about that.
Everyone's on eggshells. Is it going to get better? What's the next disaster that's going to happen?
It's different in every state. It's different in every state. In PA, we're being told they're available, but then you call and they're not. And we also I don't know how it is in Wisconsin, but we have a phase plan. We have different phases going on. So it's a phase 1A, phase 1B, phase 1C, and then 2A, which is when everybody can get it. And I think 1A is all the healthcare workers. So we're still very much in that phase. But then even people who I know are healthcare workers saying that it's not available. So it's what's happening? But I couldn't imagine being on the actual logistical side of it like you are right now. And
yeah, it's a nightmare, and it's overwhelming just to think about how many people still need to get vaccinated. Who's going to vaccinate them with what vaccine? When do you get your second dose? How do you remember to get your second dose? What if you can't come in that day? And then when you come, blah, blah, blah. There's just so much crap that goes into it. But on the positive side, it's so cool. When people come in and they get to get their vaccine and they're emotional and they're excited and they're so happy. Because I think we're focusing so much, which is normal, on the lagging distribution and how it's not fair or whatever, or people who don't want to get the vaccine and how we're not going to reach herd immunity, whatever. There's a lot of negative to focus on, but just seeing the stories of people who are so happy and grateful. And honestly, working at a health department, we're no one's favorite people right now. We get so many angry calls and mean, angry, frustrated, hurting people calling us. And so we take a lot of that. I don't actually have to take a lot of it, but our people who answer the phone. So call your health department, thank them, give them a virtual hug. PSA.
You heard it here second again. But hey, you did the Peace Corps. You know the definition of having to think on the fly and working in unstructured environments and craziness. So here's what I propose to you. How would you say your time in the Peace Corps prepared you for what's going on right now with the work that you're doing? Or did it not?
How is it not? I mean, like, from Peace Corps, it's kind of hard to market yourself after being in Peace Corps because people kind of think of it as like this hippie gap year. You're not really doing anything, but the soft skills that you gain from being in the Peace Corps is just like abundant flexibility and patience and ability to like be uncomfortable constantly. All these soft skills that just transfer, I think, into any job. And it's hard, to communicate that on a resume or something. It's a real skill to be able to market your experience, and not in like a fake way, not in like making things up that you didn't do or anything like that, but really just expressing how it prepares you just like for life. Like when I had to change plans and go to the Philippines instead of El Salvador, that was kind of like the start for me of like just adjusting to where you're at, being flexible, learning on the fly, like accepting where you're at, accepting being uncomfortable. And I think I've re-experienced since then. I think that's something that travel really instills in people, whether it's Peace Corps or something else. And it's just like, there's communication. You're a lot more able to communicate with people, even in the same language. You just think about things in a different way. And I think, it's helped immensely. And actually, at my current job, one of the people who had a hand in hiring me, she also did Peace Corps. And so I think it's cool to be part of that network. And a lot of other people also understand, have been through that experience and see the value in it. So yeah, helped immensely. 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 would recommend.
9 out of 10. 9 it's a good rating.
It's not for everybody, but it is. It's very cool.
For sure. And it's a life-changing experience. It changes your life. And you're the first of many of the people in our cohort that I'm going to be inviting on. So you're a perfect person to talk about it first. And you will be the only person, which I'm about to ask next, because I don't want to bring this question up to every single person. But do you mind sharing what that evacuation experience was like? Because I was not there. I left for family reasons a month earlier, which I still think to this day, like, oh my God.
You're so lucky.
I was like a month before. So correct me if I'm wrong, I'll give it the preface and then you take it away.
Sure.
I think it was for you guys, it was like mid-March when you got the information of like, you got to go now, like mid-March. And I left around like early February. And I still remember, like when I got to that airport, I got a call from my mom. And I was thinking like, oh, she's about to call me to tell me how excited she is that I'm coming home. She's like, hey, be careful because there's like some virus strain going on. So you might see some mask at the airport, get a mask. And me being a stubborn Puerto Rican male, I'm like, what is she talking about? And then I go and there's actually people wearing masks. I'm like, what's going on here? This was like, we were just finding out about it. And then I get here and people are like losing their shit. I'm like, what is I just got back. What is going on? And then, but you guys got the blood of it. So I'll let you take it away. How was that? And
how much time do you have?
This is gonna be the first time I hear any account of this. So I'm interested.
Boy. Okay.
So,
it was crazy. And I think like it gets crazier when I look back on it. I'm with all experiences, travel or not, I'm like very much like a retrospective. Is that a word?
Retrospective.
Yeah, that is a word. Okay. Like just a very retrospective thinker. So just like I am able to reflect on things a lot more like the longer they pass. Like right when something happens, I don't know. I'm not very reflective in the moment. It's kind of like later. So the more I think about this, it's like, it's nuts. Because in the moment you're still in that Peace Corps mentality of like, like I'm not shitting my pants. So we're fine, like things are great. Life is good. I don't have a parasite. Like everything's fine. And now I'm thinking back on how crazy it was. So I remember I was planning a trip early March. My siblings were supposed to come visit me in May. And so in the early parts of March, probably like the first 2 weeks, we were going to plan, start booking some of our flights, plan some of the details. And my sister lives in Seattle. And so she was like, let's hold off. Like, what if Seattle closes down? Because that was like the first hotspot in the United States. And so she was like, what if our airport closes? I don't want to make any plans. And I was like, loser, whatever. Okay, we'll wait. So then the next day, I was talking to my mom, and she was like, do you think you'll get evacuated at some point? I was like, like maybe at some point, but like not anytime soon. Literally the next day, everyone's still talking about this virus, and it's like becoming more and more of a thing. It's spreading to more and more places. And the president of Peru was like going to have this address. And so I was in a really rural site, but for some reason I still got like really good service on my phone. So I remember putting the address on YouTube, like live. And me and my host family, I had a host mom and a host dad and a host sister, and we were all just like watching. Oh, my host sister didn't give a shit, but we were all like watching, this address, like what's the president going to say? And the second I heard him say like, we're suspending all air, land, and sea travel, and borders are closed, I was like, oh, okay. I'm probably gone. So I think it was very much in denial. Like everyone was calling each other. Peace Corps had sent out a message just kind of being like, okay, we just heard the address as well. We're like figuring out what we're going to do with it. We'll be in contact. And so everyone's calling each other like, are you packing? Like, what are you doing? What's going on? And I was like, girl, I'm packing. You think we're going to stay here when the borders are closed? You think the federal government is like down with like all these young volunteers spread out over an entire country, like while the world is shut down? I don't think so. But everyone had like different stages of denial, I guess. And we really didn't know how big of a deal it was at this point. But then evacuations are closed. You're getting evacuated within the next week, like stand by. So for me, I knew that was like it. I packed everything. Like my host family was helping me pack. And so that was really emotional. My host sister had always wanted to have like a sleepover, and me being like, kind of like, I really like sleep. Like, it's really important to me. And I was like, there's no way you and I are sharing a sleeping bag in my twin bed. I won't get any sleep. But we had like a sleepover because I had a feeling it was my last night. So that was really precious. But yeah, I mean, like usually for Peace Corps, the process of leaving, like, when you're going to leave, either like you make plans to do it ahead of time, but when it's happening. So you can say your goodbyes, you can wrap things up, you can do all that stuff. But so I packed that night. And then the next morning I was like running around. It was so sad. Here I'm crying again. I had like my succulents, and I was just like so sad because like, this was my home. Like I was so used to this place, and I had no idea when I was going to come back. So I was like giving my succulents out to people. I was like, take care of my succulents. They were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, they're making me leave because of the pandemic, and I don't know when I'm going to be coming back. Like maybe in a couple months I'll be back. I really did think I was going to be coming back in like 3 months or something once this, blew over. And then we had to consolidate. So countrywide, if you ever have to evacuate, you consolidate in a point. So everyone in our region met up. So that was about an hour and a half away from me. And I mean, transportation was already like closing down. So people who were 5 or 6 hours away from that consolidation point had a really hard time getting there, because transportation was like hiking up the prices of everything. And I was really, really lucky. My host dad had a car, so we all took the car, and he just drove me there, which was nice. And then we were at the consolidation point in a hostel for a couple of days. And that's when things started to get really weird, because like they closed down the streets. Like there were no cars, no transportation, nothing. It was just empty. And this was in Jauja. So this was like the second largest city in our region, like pop-in markets all the time, people out everywhere. And it was just empty. And the military with like their huge guns were walking around, like, get out the street. At this point, people thought like a bunch of Spaniards, like tourists, had brought the virus to Peru. So like any volunteers that looked like this, they thought we were Europeans. They thought we were like sick. Like people would be recording us in the street of like, so it got weird like really fast. And this is the first time we're all like putting masks on. Like, this is so stupid. Like, look how weird I look. And it's so normal now, which is weird to think about. But yeah, we were given these masks to put on. And then we were the closest region to Lima. So Junin is about 7 hours more or less from Lima. So we were going to have a bus take us, but they didn't have the paperwork that allowed us to be on the street. I think the embassy was working on it, and it fell through. So actually staff, like our security staff, Enrique, Navarro, and like all these like security people came from Lima in these pickup trucks and vans and stuff to come get us and bring us to Lima, which was like such a blessing. It was so nice to like see some familiar faces and know that we were good, you know? So there's like some pictures. We all had to leave some of our bags behind with our host families. And then the rest of our luggage was just stacked so high on this pickup truck. Not safe at all. I'm shocked that nothing like flopped over the side of the mountain on our way to Lima, because the road is just like so windy. It's crazy. So we got to Lima. We actually met up with another cohort of volunteers. They were there for their close of service training. So unfortunately, they were at the hotel when all this like went down. So they weren't at site. They weren't able to pack anything. They weren't able to say goodbye to their families. They were not prepared at all. They were 3 months away from leaving. So they were kind of ready to dive into like those goodbyes and wrapping up their service. So I feel really, really bad for that group of people. At least I got to like run around and like throw my plants at people and like give my books to people and be like, please keep teaching sex ed, and like say goodbyes and stuff, which did not suffice, but better than nothing, you know? And then we got to Lima, and, you know, they were kind of switching between like, okay, you can leave. Okay, no, you can't leave. Okay, you can go to the store, but you have to come right back. And they were like checking people's temperatures as they went into the grocery store and stuff. It was just really bizarre. And then finally we got a flight together, a chartered flight for some people at the embassy as well as Peace Corps volunteers. And actually some of the groups weren't even there yet because they had issues with transportation getting there. Because like I said, some people were 25, 26, 29 hours from Lima by bus. So it was a lot more difficult for them because there's checkpoints, because there wasn't supposed to be travel. So there were checkpoints along the way that people could have gotten stopped at. So then we went to the airport, and the airport was closed. So this was, I think, like the craziest part of it, because we got to the airport on these buses, and they were like, okay, this is the point where you need to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, because the airport was closed. So tourists from all over the world were just like laying around on the street with their luggage, like calling people, trying to get out, trying to get home, but all their flights were canceled. So, and in Lima, the airport is not a nice area. So it was just like really bizarre to see that. And so we like are trying to like run. People were like, again, like recording us, like, look at these Americans, like getting out of the country. And it felt very like, what's that Ben Affleck movie? I don't know, but they have to like get out of the country or something. It just felt very weird.
So you correct me if I'm wrong. You guys had a chartered flight that was sent by the government.
Yes.
Okay. And even though the airport was closed, our Peace Corps group at the time when you guys were there, you guys were able to leave, but the airport itself was shut down. So not normal people couldn't get out. But with the help of the government, you guys were able to get out. And as you were getting out, everybody was like, like what?
Yeah, that was an intimidating part. They're like, literally, the embassy people got on the bus. They're like, okay, get from point A to point B, get your luggage. I don't care whose luggage it is, just get into like beyond the gates of the airport, because there's a lot of people here who are going to be wondering where you're going and why you get to go in. People might throw stuff at you. People might say things to you. Luckily, I don't think anything like that happened. But it was just really tense. Like we're literally like on both sides are just people who are like tired and frustrated and want to get home. And we're just kind of like walking into the airport that is closed. And it was so bizarre. Like, I mean, the lights were off, everything was closed, except for our gate. And even Peru was one of those countries where there were so many tourists, I think, who were left there, because I kept hearing for months after that, like the embassy still trying to get people out of Peru. And I mean, countries all over the world, right? Like people were stuck everywhere. So we were really lucky. And people were like, oh my gosh, were you scared? I was like, no, like the federal government was in charge of me. Like I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to book a flight. I just like sat on a bus, and then another bus, and then another bus, and then a plane. And I was home. It was crazy. And then we would see, like, we flew into DC. So we like, you could just see Peace Corps volunteers everywhere. And I flew from DC to Chicago. And so like just everywhere you would see just like dirty, like young people everywhere. And we're like, Peace Corps, evacuated, same.
You smell bad, I smell bad, it works. Oh man, so I don't even want to begin to understand the emotions that you guys must have been going through.
It was crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
and
It was,
then like, oh, I didn't go through that, but oh my god. So and then I feel for the like people who have dogs and relationships and
mm-hmm.
oh,
Yeah, people were panicking, trying to get their pets out. That didn't happen for months. Yeah, people who had relationships. People like we were at this hotel in Lima, and we at a certain point we couldn't go out. People couldn't come in. We had like amazing food, everything we could want. It was like the nicest hotel I've ever stayed at. It was the only one that would let us stay there at that time. And so people couldn't come in or out, and people were like sneaking in their boyfriends and girlfriends and like trying to say their final goodbyes. And I can't even imagine. I had no one and nothing. So
get their final goodbyes.
Yeah.
Oh my
crazy.
god. Oh my god. And then you come back and you're like, hey guys, I'm back. And it probably happened so quick that you couldn't process it. Or did you process it and you just couldn't fathom it?
Yeah, no, I definitely was not processing it because like nothing about it was normal, just like leaving so fast and then getting home and the world is shut down. Like when I first left, I was like, oh, like woe is me. I'm so sad I didn't get to say my goodbyes. And then like it's March and April and like people are dying, like the pandemic is happening, everyone's losing their job. Like both my parents kept their jobs throughout the whole thing. I had a home to go back to, you know, like it's not like I had sold my house, sold my cars, like didn't have a family that was willing to support me. I had it very good. And so I very quickly kind of like turned my attention to like the pandemic and everything that was going on, trying to find a job, you know, trying to get back on my feet. Because I very quickly realized like I was not going to be able to go back anytime soon. You know, that realization like slowly crept in. So I was like, okay, I need to start planning for the future. Like, what am I going to do? And again, I was super, super blessed because I could just live with my parents and they helped me and fed me and clothed me. And I was okay. But yeah, so I think I just kind of tried to move on really quick. Like, I think it was just too much to think about. And so I think just these past few months, honestly, like 6, 7, 8, 9 months later, now I'm like, that was wild. Like just reflecting, thinking about it. Like I finally printed out some pictures, some photo albums, and now I'm like able to reflect on it and think about it. And it took a long time to realize like what happened. But we were very taken care of the whole time, so it was fine.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, now you got your own place. You got your a really super nice job. I remember. So fun fact, everybody, when I was on my way out, I called up Rachel and I was like, hey, Rachel, I'm heading out. Let's chat before we head out. And we had a long conversation. And in that conversation, you mentioned about, oh, well, like I have this public health degree. how am I going to use it? But now it's like you're doing this cool public health job and you're combining somewhat of what you did with the Peace Corps and into this wild, crazy time of unstructuredness. And I feel like it's working out. I feel like at the end of the day, it works out. It has to work out. So for you, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it always does. There's always a plan or a path, whether you believe in fate, whatever, it's always going to work out.
Wild. Well, that was our longest interview yet, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. I wouldn't have had it any other way. Rachel is great. She has so many awesome experiences. We didn't even get to talk about Mozambique. Look at that.
Oh, man. Now you have to have me on again.
I have you on again.
Part 2. Just kidding.
Part 2. And then it'll be 2.5 hours. We'll double it. But unless there's anything else you quickly want to mention, that was a phenomenal interview. You told us everything about your time in Peace Corps. You told us everything about Philippines and what it's been like for you learning the language. And again, this podcast is for everybody who's listening, is to not just be educational and to learn different things, but also learn about the experiences that people go through when they travel and what it's like for them to come back. And I think you did phenomenal at that. So anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Never trust a fart.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No,
absolutely.
I don't want those to be my last words. Thank you for having me. I didn't listen to any of the previous interviews before coming on because I didn't want to piggyback off anybody else. So now I'm going to go back and listen. And I think what you're doing is really cool because people travel so differently and have really different travel experiences. And it's always, it's really cool to hear about it. So I think this is a good idea. And I'm glad that I'm on it. Don't follow me on Instagram. Don't friend me on Facebook. I'm not an influencer.
That's why she didn't put her last name on.
Yeah, don't find me.
Don't mind. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day, Rachel.
Thanks. You too. Bye, world.